I've rewritten this numerous times, and I apologize for the length of time. I had very little contact with my father for many years. He and my mother had a bitter divorce when I was 18, and he found his current girlfriend, Debbie, when I was 20 without going to my wedding. I cut out my alcoholic dad for good after he pretended to be ill to skip it, but he said that I should feel sorry for my dad. In detail, he was physically and mentally abusive to me all of my life until I moved out when I was 20. When the pandemic struck, he began calling more, and since I was in my 30s and the world was in a worse state, I was more willing to talk to him. We would talk slowly, with me setting very strict boundaries for the topics of our conversations. He would occasionally break them, yell at me, go into timeout, and then be fine for a while when I met him. When I moved in with Victor, my father, who was genuinely happy for me and had spent time trying to get to know him over the phone, apologized to me for everything he had done. For the first time in my life, I felt hurt and validated by my father, who apologized for treating me like trash in favor of my siblings and for all the terrible things he had done to me. I cried, feeling relief and validation like I had never experienced before. I'm open to dating him again. He was excited when I got engaged and asked if he was walking me down the aisle. I told him that it didn't feel right and that I didn't have any groomsmen or bridesmaids, so it made sense to walk alone. No one in my family ever supported me, so why wouldn't I go into my next chapter alone like I did in my adult life? He was disappointed, but he was cool with it. He agreed to a dance, and I told him that everyone on my mother's side was thrilled to see him again after all these years. He and my mother have been friendly for years, so there was no ill will. He organized a dinner and invited Victor and me over, and everything went well. I was feeling good about everything, and we made arrangements for him to meet Victor's parents, which was significant because we had to travel to a different state to bring the week before the meeting. My father wanted to cancel, saying that Debbie was having exploratory surgery and wouldn't be recovered in time. I told him that we had already made these plans, but that was fine, and asked if we could just drive by and he could just step outside his house and say hello. Victor's father, who is in his 70s, was undergoing extensive surgery himself, so it was crucial to meet him now before he reluctantly agreed. And when we pulled up, I was shocked to see that she was with him. She looked fine, had no bandages on, and was walking normally. I thought that was strange, but who am I to judge? They both said hello, and we continued. Over the coming months, he made plans, and every time he canceled a week, he would come up with an excuse. His friend's car broke down, and he needed to lend him money, so we offered to buy him dinner. However, they refused to let Debbie have exploratory surgery again. How many people can one person have? Debbie had doctor's appointments that he only recently learned about. They had to take the car to the shop, etc. He kept telling lies, some of which he repeated from my childhood, and I knew he was lying. His favorite lies were always about medicine. He wanted to treat me for my birthday in the summer, but we had to reschedule. 3 weeks before my wedding, I received a call from Debbie, who shared a phone. As soon as I answered, she demanded to know why I hadn't told anyone that we had a room block in the parking garage next to the hotel. He began to get drunk on his phone calls and become argumentative again, but he was excited about the wedding and was planning to make a nice trip out of it with Debbie and stay for a few days. I was dumbfounded because, first, I didn't realize the hotel didn't cover the fact that we lived close to the venue and were simply leaving after the wedding. Second, it's a big city, so of course they're going to charge. And third, why are you calling me to complain about this when no one else had? I told her that I didn't know that no one else who made reservations at the hotels had informed me we were getting married on Sunday in early November, and on the Tuesday before the wedding, I received a call from my father, which I missed because I had an urgent doctor's appointment. I told her that $25 was a pretty good deal, and that if they couldn't afford it, it wasn't a big deal because they might only stay for one day or because they only lived an hour away from the venue. They didn't have to stay at the hotel because it has free parking. She hung up on me. I was in the hospital the day before, and stress from everything made a previous medical condition worse. Instead, I got a text saying that he wouldn't be attending my wedding because Debbie was having exploratory surgery and they couldn't come, but he would still send a card. I knew then that he was lying because he had been lying all year, so I texted him back, pleading with him to come. This was the most important day of my life, and it wasn't about money because I am his daughter. He said it's not a contest of who's more important, and he was surprised at me when I gave my wonderful Victor my phone while I was crying and unable to respond because I was hurting and devastated. He wrote a text, showed it to me for approval, and then sent it, saying basically in a very polite but firm manner that if he couldn't spare a few hours, Debbie would be fine for a short while. He gave me a couple of hours of his time to visit me on the most important day of my life, but thereafter we stopped communicating and I will never speak to him again. My mother, who has a story of her own, even called him to yell at him for what he was doing. She knew his lies too, and he told her that she would still receive a card. I kept him unblocked until the middle of the morning on the day of my wedding. and I didn't receive a single message or call. My wedding day was perfect. Everything we wanted was there, and I felt a little sad just before walking down the aisle. Some friends who didn't know about my father asked me where he was, but apart from that, I didn't even think of him. It wasn't until after Thanksgiving that I thought to check my blocked messages, which he hadn't sent. I killed my hopes of having my father be there for me. Then, without thinking, I blocked him. On the day of my wedding, he sent me a message wishing me luck, but to sum it up, he said, "Debbie will always come first." I didn't understand it, so I told my brother, who still speaks to him, that he was dead to me, and if he asked to tell him that my brother believes Debbie is keeping my father from spending time with his family, I honestly don't care. He made that decision, and he asked my brother about the consequences of his actions, and my brother replied that it was a big wave, but I'm not talking about it. As a result, I decided that my father would no longer be in my life. I feel a range of emotions, mostly relief, sadness, and anger, but I can't help but occasionally check my blocked messages because I sometimes just want to know if he knows how much he hurt me or even if he cares. I wonder if I'm doing the right thing by removing him from my life forever. No, we haven't received that card yet, but we did receive a Happy Easter text with a reply from the OP saying that he might not have planned to come. I think you're right, and I hate to think that this was his plan all along. I still have the hope that maybe he was planning to come at some point, but in the end, does he have substance abuse issues? Well, both he and my mother were alcoholics when he first dated Debbie, and before I left, my father had custody of us. After the divorce, I was old enough to leave, but I'm not sure if this was his plan to drop out right before my big day. Thank you for your kind words and reading, and the support from such nice online strangers is helping me heal and be at peace with my decision. When Debbie and my father argued, she came into my room and apologized for getting my brother back into drugs. She also admitted to me that she started him on cocaine and pills after his first heart attack. They stopped the drugs and only use alcohol now, but I couldn't leave my brother alone. That's a story for another day. I found some white powder on the garage table and cleaned it off, thinking it was salt. One thing to be mindful of is that if you find out you are expecting a child, he will return saying he has changed and that this time he will start over. At that point, ask yourself why you should ever allow your child to go through the suffering, confusion, manipulation, and rejection that you did and throw him out. Victor's fear that I will bend when a child arrives is something he discussed extensively with me. Brought to mind my early years and how he understands that I would never want to expose a future child to that. He is entirely correct, and while it saddens me that my children will never meet my father eventually, it was the best choice. My niece met my father once at her baptism and never again. She asks my sister questions, and my sister is at a loss for words, only stating that he is not a very nice person. I received a request for an update, and now I have confirmation. Now that things have calmed down, there hasn't been an update, but more of a development first. I want to thank everyone for their advice and comments. It meant the world to me that anyone took the time to write me. You all inspired me and made me more determined. Immediately after my post, I had a nice conversation with Victor, and he agreed with everything you all said. I even considered permanently removing my father's number from my phone, but after reading the comments and considering what everyone had said, I finally began to wonder why I had ever thought I was the one who had cut him off. I suppose I have my answer. My brother Devin, 30, is very impressionable and lives with my mother. Although living with my mother can be a nightmare, they were doing well. My brother was critical of me, so I gave up school to pursue a career and took on 3 jobs. To help him succeed, some family members on his mother's side decided to step in and get him out of my mother's house and support him to move to a warmer state to rent with some cousins. They even paid for him to fly out to the new state and see if he could succeed. He has always struggled to be truly independent, mostly because of my father's coddling for most of his life. He was the golden child, the only boy. He wanted to move, but he apparently went straight to my father's house and stayed there for 4 days. I don't know why, but I called my brother a few days after he got back to my mother's, and he told me he was excited to move to the new state. After we spoke for a while, I told him I was happy for him, but also sad that I would be losing one of my close family members. He replied that I'm the only family member who still speaks to Dad, so imagine I was shocked when I said, "I'm sorry, what did you say?" He became irate and simply said, "Well, when I move, Dad will have no one because you refuse to talk to him even though it's been months. You really should feel bad for him. He doesn't understand how you can still be angry at him." All of those emotions returned, including doubt, guilt, and whether I was doing the right thing. Then the anger came at that moment. What my family and father typically do to me is play the victim and make everyone feel bad for him, even though I am right. I took a deep breath and told my brother Devin that his dad made his own decision and that I was open to him being a father, but he declined, saying he didn't want to be in my life. He has no right to complain because he did this to himself, and I don't care whether Debbie forced him to leave or not. My brother didn't have anything to say and simply hurried me off the phone with hardly a goodbye and hung up after I barely got the words, "Love you" out. I told Victor what Devin said, and he was horrified. He wished I had taken the call close to him so he could talk to my brother himself. I told him that my father brainwashed him into believing he wasn't normally like this, reminded me that Devin is no longer a child and that I shouldn't excuse what he said. I was horrified, and my resolve was shaken once more. I felt uncomfortable about the phone call, so I followed up the following day. He wanted to move at the beginning of June, so I asked him to come see me before he traveled a long distance by car to take a plane. And he said he would see me on a given day for his yearly visit, as usual. A week before our regular visitation date, the day before he left, my brother called me and sounded so happy, saying, "Hey, what's up?" I told him honestly, "I'm a little hurt and disappointed in you right now because I plan to move in 4 days and make the multi-day drive to the new state." So he lied to me and didn't even intend to see me say goodbye. Victor had nothing to say, just that he was extremely disappointed in my brother. My father would say, "I'm thrilled that he's moving and having a new opportunity, but I'm upset that he's telling me 12 hours later. I assumed he was calling to tell me that he was leaving tomorrow and that he wasn't even bothering to say goodbye to me." He then became adamant that he told me, and when I pointed out that he didn't, he became furious with me, accusing me of always playing the victim and asking why I wasn't happy about his departure and how dare I make him feel guilty. He has to pass within 20 minutes of where I live, so when he leaves without saying goodbye, I start crying. My brother apologizes for not telling me, and I offer to be up whenever he needs to be. I just wanted to say goodbye, but he declined, saying he would be back. Eventually, Victor was listening and became upset with my brother and the way he was speaking to me. He is so upset with him that he hopes he will start acting like him since he moved to the new state. I haven't heard from my father in months. My brother and I have spoken on the phone a few times to check in, and during the first month in particular, he was having trouble finding a full-time job, but he was doing everything he could to at least pay the rent. He became busy in the last month, so I hadn't heard from him in a while. On my birthday, he texted me to wish me a happy birthday and promised to call me at 11:45 p.m. He finally called me while I was playing a video game with some friends. After a quick conversation, I asked if he was free the following evening, and he said that he was. I told him that I would call him the following day to properly catch up because he caught me in the middle of something and hung up without answering. Since I checked for this post and didn't get any calls, I haven't tried to call him since. My father has been sending me messages since his Happy Easter, but ever since he and my mother split up, he has consistently forgotten my birthday. I'm at a loss, not sure what I did wrong or what I did to deserve this treatment from him. I'm just sitting here feeling depressed, and all I've ever wanted is for my family to love me. If you have any advice for me, I just ask that you say it politely because my heart is rather full, though it's not a full pot of tea. You can sip it from a DT cup made up of my unresolved issues. Thank you all for your kind words. I appreciate you taking the time to comment and confirm my feelings. Update 2, February 19th, 2025. I have received a few requests for a further update. And I do have some new developments, so I can at least share something with you all. My brother called me in October to tell me that he wasn't doing well in the new state and that he essentially wanted to return home. I wonder if he was trying to avoid having to go back to my mother by moving in with Victor and me, but I would never live with him again. I essentially asked him to talk to our mother and figure out a plan to return if that's what he wants to do. After I finished trying to make things better for him, he promised to come back for Christmas, which didn't happen. I haven't heard from him since I received the group holiday texts, but I steadfastly refused to get in touch. He has betrayed every promise he made to me, and I am finally feeling strong enough to get away from him through my mother. I learned that he got a better job and was looking to stay there. I suppose I wasn't needed anymore, so that's why I haven't received any calls or texts. And yesterday I learned that he is no longer employed because the 20-year-old car that he never took care of has finally died. My mother used to make him get oil changes and other basic maintenance, but now that she isn't there to nag him into adulthood, it has finally died. I feel like either my uncle will help him get a car or he will try to move back. If he does, I'll bet money that he will try to move in with my father. If that's the case, I do feel like they will work together to try and manipulate me into forgiving them and taking advantage of me. My father has been making an effort to get in touch with me. I've received numerous texts from him on holidays expressing his love and commitment to me, as well as his best wishes for me and Victor. I also keep receiving calls and silent voicemails from unknown numbers, and my sister even met him for the first time in years because my niece wanted to meet him. He attempted to explain why he couldn't attend my wedding, but my sister told him since my sister and I are not close, I greatly appreciated her telling me that he behaved himself and was fine, even though I was doing an impressive job of not checking the messages. He kept trying to defend himself, but my sister kept shutting him down, saying he could have made at least a minimal effort. He said there was no excuse, and he should have attended the ceremony at the very least. Victor gets upset with me when I check, and he wants me to avoid getting involved with either my father or my brother again. He still intends to talk to my brother the next time we see him, but I'm fighting back by reminding myself that I only seem to be his daughter when it's convenient and that, to me, I'm still just a girl who wants her father, and I'm making a lot of effort to avoid falling back into this trap. Perpetual pit of misery, I won't lie. I've been lonely since all of my friends vanished after the wedding. I've tried to get in touch with them to find out how they're doing, but it's been difficult. I've been trying to make new friends, but it's been difficult. I spend most of my days playing video games with Victor or working from home online for our business. I love my husband, but occasionally I just want a girl day because my confidence has fallen. My mental health has suffered as well because of what I see in the mirror these days. We've been trying for a child with no success, but I am looking forward to my first therapy appointment next month. But regrettably, my saga isn't over. If something significant occurs, I'll let you know, Waffles.